I share greetings and goodwill to you all once again. My natural native earthly humans the world over. Yes, you don't know that this is yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. And welcome to part 3, the continuation of my series of talks titled, Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? Now, if you haven't yet watched or listened to part 1 and part 2, I ask that you please do so before going forward with this part 3, or that you do so at your earliest convenience, as soon as possible. Now, before I continue to point out and address what I, the Mystic Philosopher, perceived to be the gross errors, wickedness, and sins of some old people, especially old men, as it relates to the position of leadership and governance of our people on the continent of El Cubaland, aka Africa, and no doubt elsewhere in the world today, let me make it clear that from my perspective, and the evidence will also show and prove that old people, aka seniors like myself and older, do have a very important part to play and must play a very important part in governance and in society in general. But it is definitely not and should not be in leadership roles or as leaders, political leaders in particular. It should be and must be as advisors, as counselors, as comforters, as strategists, as philosophers, as coach, spiritual guides, as spiritual healers and teachers, etc., etc. This is a fact that not only activated common sense will affirm, but this natural pattern of behavior can be seen and is plainly seen, illustrated or demonstrated among some animals in the animal kingdom as well. Some animals, if not all animals, or some animals, if not all animals, hunting success and their survival as a group and as a species is totally dependent on organization, structure, order, selflessness, and coordinated strategy. Please note, selflessness and definitely not selfishness. Among one particular animal that I have observed, the collective good of the pack far outweighs the individual success or the individual ambitions or goals. Each individual know that the survival of the whole pack or the whole group is much more greater than itself, and thus it will without hesitation put its own life at risk, and when and where necessary sacrifice its own life just for the good and benefit of the entire pack. They know when to step down, when to step aside, when to step back and allow and support the younger and more capable one among them to lead. And please note, support and not to sabotage. Case in point, wolves. Let's take the wolves family and the role of older wolves, aka senior wolves in the pack. Let's see what happened to older wolves in the pack. Now, according to the website called FaunaFacts.com, and I quote, old wolves in the pack will stay behind the younger and more vital wolves, unquote. Now, please note that quite unlike some, if not all of the aforementioned old men and old women in politics and positions of power and authority today, especially some of those, if not all of those old men in political leadership positions on the continent of Africa, who because of their own personal ambitions, their own selfishness to lead, or selfish desire to lead, to govern, to maintain power and control over our people. Some have diabolically, willfully, and otherwise conspired with our adversaries. Some have, and some are making pacts with the devil, or the devils, the imperialists, the unconscionable capitalists, the despicable racists, the colonizers, and are plotting, trying, and are doing all manner of evil to unalive the young man. The young man that our source and our most honorable African ancestors have evidently risen up to lead his people to victory over their enemies. Unlike them, the old wolves stay behind and not in front of the younger and more vital wolves. The evidence is hereby showing and proving that unlike some selfish old people, the old wolves know their place in the pack and act accordingly. Again, let's quote continue. But are still important members of the pack. Older wolves are still important members of the pack. They will protect the young pups and share their hunting strategies and their wisdom with other pack members. The older wolves get, the less agile they get. They are less capable in hunts. However, it doesn't mean they don't have their place in the wolf pack. In fact, they can be quite important for the structure and the integrity of the pack. They will protect the younger pups, but also share their experience with younger members of the pack, giving the younger wolves a glimpse into the hunting strategies of the old and experienced wolf. Unquote. Now, isn't it ironic that some, if not all, of these old and useless political leaders on the continent of Africa and elsewhere, of course, would be offended and maybe even have you imprisoned or unalive if you publicly, or if one publicly call them wolves? And no doubt they would be the first to boast that in the order of things they are far more evolved than wolves. However, when compared to wolves, their lives, their behavior, and their actions are far, far inferior to that of wolves. Now, at certain times, if not all the time, when we can see and witness for ourselves some old people, and in particular some old men that we all know by their mere feeble appearances, that their productive days are literally over. They are way past retirement from the service of Source, or God if you will, and humans as well. We know that their days of hearing directly from Source, aka hearing directly from God, or directly from our most honorable ancestors, and doing good works are over. But yet still, we also see them hanging on to power while standing in the way of young people, while standing in the way of the youths. And why are they doing this? Some of you might be asking. Well, according to the previous scriptures that I have read and interpret in the previous talk, part 2, it is because they are selfish and wicked. And from my perspective, it is because of their former and sometimes current wickedness. Source, or God if you will, is allowing them to hang on while hanging on to power longer than required, and in the process make them suffer in indignity. Sometimes people are laughing after them and making fun of these fools, and they don't even know. In fact, you don't even have to look carefully to see some of them in positions of power and authority in their government houses, in their state houses, and in their parliament or the parliament houses, etc., claiming to be on the job. Some claiming and pretending to be working for and to be defending the people, while the evidence shows that they are fast asleep in their chairs. They can't even stay awake for an hour. Dropsy taking them over. In fact, according to the Adamic race history and holy book, and I quote, "It shall come to pass afterward that I will pour my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, unquote. Now, if this is true, I ask that you please note that I ask that you please note that it did not say all people, the parents, who shall or who will prophesy, but their sons and daughters, the young ones, our sons and daughters, our young ones. Quote again, your old men shall dream dreams, unquote. Old men, aka old people, are sleepyheads. And in order to be dreaming, you got to be sleeping. So when you see some of these old political leaders and heads of states nodding off and sleeping at meetings and at conferences, etc., please note that it is the fulfillment of this prophecy. They are sleeping and dreaming. So all some of them good for. Quote, your young men shall see visions, unquote. But note again that it is not the old men that shall see visions, but it is the young men, the young ones, yes, the youths. And we also know that when or where there is no vision, the people perish. This could literally mean that if it is old people, especially those of us that far past the system's own retirement age, that are claiming to be leading the people, then the people or the citizens are destined, they are doomed, they are bound to perish, meaning the people are oppressed, the people will suffer. And so activated common sense will affirm that in order for the people not to be oppressed or to suffer, they need qualified young people, young men with vision, men and women with vision to plan for them and to lead them, and not to have some old half-dead people hanging on to power while standing in the way of the future, or in the way of their future, in the way of their progress, and in the way of their development. Now, let me wrap up this part 3 quickly, and by quickly pointing out some very important facts about Africa, and more correctly, Al-Cubeland, Al-Kibu-land, the motherland. Now, Africa has the world's youngest population. That's a fact. In other words, Africa has the most young people in the world. According to one recent report I read right here online, Africa's median age is about 19 years old. While the median age, look at the comparison now, while the median age of its leaders is 63, it's about 63 years old. And that is why I am more than happy, proud and well pleased to proclaim for the world and all our enemies, our haters, to see and hear that Africa is the future. Africa is alive and growing. And we, the highly enriched, melaninated, or highly carbon people, the world over, are not descending, but as always, we are ascending. In every sense of the word, ascending, we are on the up and up. And it is the old political people, mainly the old political men, politicians, that are hanging on to positions of leadership, power, and authority, that are standing in the way of Africa's progress. And so I, the Mystic Philosopher, in my uncompromising capacity as a nobody, hereby call upon the old and useless all old and useless African political leaders and heads of state to wake up. Wake up from your dream when you sleep. Stop dreaming and become wise as wolves, and step aside and step behind the youths, thereby allowing the younger, more agile youths to run things. Here is your opportunity to show and prove to your people and to the rest of the world that you truly care for them. Please join me in part 4 for the continuation of Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of the upright people, or the land of upright people, be set free? In the meantime and between time, here's willing that you be more and more and much, much more, and definitely not be less. Don't be less, aka bless. Don't let nobody be less you, for I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. I say.